Her daughter-in-law placed a dog bowl in front of her, laughing like it was harmless. Eleanor Reed, widow and former accountant, didn't touch a bite. Mark, her son, chuckled from the kitchen, while their golden retriever ate off fine china. By Monday, their joint account was gone, their access revoked, and the utilities in her name only. She'd balanced their books, raised their children, and paid for that home in silence. Now the woman they mocked over dinner held every line item of their future. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The gravy clung to the side of her tongue like wet cardboard. Something was wrong. Eleanor Reed sat stiffly at the head of the reclaimed wood dining table, her fork paused halfway to her plate, the overhead Edison bulbs casting a golden haze on the meatloaf slice in front of her. Around her, plates clinked, glasses thudded softly, and the occasional buzz of Carrie's boutique ringtone cut through the air like a gnat no one wanted to swat. "I made yours with the special blend," Carrie said from across the table, a sugary grin plastered onto her glossed lips. "Extra protein packed. Since you always say you don't get enough." Eleanor blinked at her daughter-in-law, then looked back down at the meatloaf. It looked normal enough, maybe a little grainier, a touch off color under the lighting. She took another cautious bite. The texture turned to mush, gritty, oily, with a sharp metallic undertone. Eleanor's jaw slowed. A second passed, then another. Laughter burst across the table like a firecracker. "Oh my God, she ate it!" Carrie cackled, holding her side. Mark chuckled, his mouth half full. "Come on, it's not that bad." Wesley's face dropped. "Wait, Mom, what was in that?" Carrie wiped tears from the corners of her eyes. "Relax, it's the same brand as Muffin's kibble, the organic lamb one. I just wanted to see if anyone could tell the difference." Eleanor didn't speak. Her hands, veined and pale, lowered the fork slowly onto the napkin. She stood calm and expressionless, and pushed her chair back with the quiet grace of someone folding a memory into a box. "I'll be right back," she said. No one stopped her. She climbed the stairs silently. The hallway smelled faintly of lilac and fresh paint, the new remodel masking the years she had sold off to pay for it. The bathroom door clicked shut behind her. She turned the lock. Her knees hit the cold tile before the wave even finished rising. Bile burned her throat as her stomach emptied with betrayal. She stayed there, trembling, one hand on the wall for balance. Somewhere beneath her, the laughter had resumed, casual, comfortable. No one came up, not even Mark. She rinsed her mouth with minty mouthwash until her gums stung. She didn't cry. Not yet. She opened her bedroom door, then crossed quietly to the antique cabinet she'd insisted on keeping, the one Carrie had mocked for smelling like history books and fear of change. The key was hidden inside the ceramic acorn bowl on her dresser. She unlocked the cabinet with steady hands. Inside was her old leather binder, black, thick, labeled in gold, "Reed Financial, Active Holdings." She hadn't opened it in a year, not since she'd sold her condo to help fund this house, a remodeled craftsman dream her son said would finally bring the family under one roof again. She pulled it out, laid it on the bed, and sat with her legs crossed, flipping the first tabbed section open to joint accounts. She found the one she co-owned with Mark. There it was, the last 5 months. Withdrawals, transfers, Amazon charges, a $1,642 furniture purchase from a store she'd never heard of, another $800 for business decor. She reached over to her desk drawer, pulled out her calculator, and began punching in numbers. Her fingers didn't tremble anymore. From the hallway, footsteps padded lightly past, then paused. A folded note slid beneath her door. She picked it up. "Sorry they were mean. You're the best part of this house." Her throat closed up at the edges. She touched the pen stroke of the doubly, then placed the note inside the binder's cover. Her voice was soft as she said it aloud to the empty room. "Then I better protect it." She stood, spine straighter now, and moved back to the cabinet. From the bottom drawer, she retrieved a manila folder marked "Contacts." She flipped until she found Jeanette Morse. Her oldest friend, a retired banker. Trusted, sharp. She tapped out a text. Need your eyes on something. Can we meet? Then, with one last look at the binder, she opened her email app and began typing a new message. To Maya Price, subject, private meeting request. She hesitated only once, then hit send. The laughter still echoed in Eleanor's ears. Not the sound of joy, but of something coarser. Casual cruelty with mashed potatoes in their teeth. Downstairs, the dishwasher hummed as plates were loaded. Carrie's voice rose in bursts, talking about content strategy and viewer engagement. Eleanor, however, sat upstairs under the pale glow of her reading lamp, the black binder splayed open like a crime scene. She pressed the calculator's buttons with slow precision. Click, click. Total, $9,874.52. She blinked, then recalculated. Again. Same number. Her fingers hovered over the next page in the account history. Highlighted charges scrawled in her familiar red ink. 3 tabs of expenses she never authorized, never saw, never benefited from. A $312 charge at Lux Petals Floral Supply. A $948 transaction at Vintage Furniture. Multiple Uber rides to warehouse districts she'd never heard of. This wasn't her life they were spending. It was her retirement, her home equity, her trust. The very money Mark had once tearfully called a bridge to keep our family whole. She felt that bridge crumbling, brick by brick, under the weight of Carrie's throw pillows and Pinterest-fueled storefront dreams. Her cell phone lay beside the binder. She stared at it for a moment, then dialed the only number that felt real. A click. Then, well, this must be important. It's past Wheel of Fortune. Jeanette, Eleanor said quietly. I need you. The voice on the other end dropped its humor. Tell me what happened. Eleanor inhaled, then exhaled like she'd been holding it since dinner. They're using the joint account. Not for bills. Not for groceries. Boutique purchases. Business expenses. Nearly 10 grand since March. Did you sign off on any of it? No. Not one. Then they're not just disrespecting you, Jeanette said, voice steel smooth. They're draining you. With entitlement wrapped in a thank you. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded with something sharp. Eleanor closed the binder. Can you help me sort this? I can help you take it back, Jeanette replied. Every penny. They agreed to meet Wednesday morning. Eleanor hung up, feeling the click of the call like the first bolt in a steel door locking shut. Across the room the house creaked, settling or complaining, she couldn't tell. She stood and crossed to her desk, retrieved a fresh notepad, and began logging transactions one by one. Every vendor, every date, every dollar. She wrote methodically, eyes scanning between the screen and her sheet like a forensic accountant piecing together a slow betrayal. Down the hallway, footsteps, soft, hesitant. Then a tap, not on the door. Beneath it, a note slid through the gap, folded in quarters, the paper creased and worn. Eleanor rose and picked it up. Sorry they were mean. You're the best part of this house. No signature, but she didn't need one. She knew that handwriting, a mix of blocky print and adolescent self-doubt. She sat back on the edge of her bed and held the note gently, as if it might tear from emotion alone. Her eyes burned. She let one tear fall, then another. Quiet tears. The kind that came not from sadness, but from a clarity that hurt worse. Wesley saw her, and she had to become someone worth seeing. She reached for the laptop again, logged out of the joint account, then opened her email. To Maya Price, subject, private meeting request. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard only long enough to gather steel. Hi Maya. Hope you're well. I need to discuss an urgent matter regarding account ownership and personal protections. Please let me know if we can meet privately this week. She clicked send and sat back. The room was silent again, but this time it felt like it belonged to her. Eleanor stirred her tea with the same motion she used when balancing an equation, slow, exact, purposeful. Across from her at the kitchen island, Carrie leaned against the quartz counter with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Okay, So I get that maybe the dog food thing went too far, she said with a theatrical sigh. But it was just light family humor. We all laughed a little, didn't we? Eleanor lifted her eyes without lifting her chin. The spoon stilled. Humor usually has two sides, she said quietly. This had one. Carrie's smile faltered, her manicured fingers tightening around her iced coffee tumbler. I mean, come on. It's not like we made you eat a sock. It was just a nibble. Eleanor didn't respond. She simply took a small sip of her tea, still hot enough to sting the back of her throat. A welcome distraction. Somewhere behind them, the refrigerator's compressor kicked on, humming louder than Carrie's backpedaling. Footsteps approached. Wesley entered, hair messy from sleep, backpack still slung over one shoulder. Morning, he said, glancing between the two women. His eyes stopped on Eleanor. You eat yet? Not yet, she said, setting her mug down. I can make you something. For real this time, he added, with the faintest attempt at a grin. Eggs toast. I'll read the labels twice. Carrie scoffed. He's 14. He acts like he's your butler. Eleanor tilted her head. He acts like he was raised well. Wesley cracked eggs, with careful hands, checking expiration dates like they were coded warnings. As he moved through the kitchen, Carrie huffed and excused herself, mumbling something about an inventory live stream. Once she was gone, Eleanor rose. She padded down the hall to her room, where her laptop still sat open from the night before. She signed into her banking dashboard, entered a verification code, and began the next phase. Password change completed. Biometric settings disabled. Joint user access suspended. Each click felt like a needle being threaded through a rip she hadn't noticed until it frayed. By noon, she and Jeanette were seated in a downtown notary's office. The walls were mustard yellow, and the smell of toner filled the air like an old promise. Jeanette flipped through the documents. Durable power of attorney, she murmured, pointing to the line where Mark's name sat in bold. Ready to reclaim it, Eleanor nodded. Replace him with you. Effective immediately. The notary, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense tone, slid the paperwork forward. Initial here, full signature here, and final authorization here. Click, click, scratch. Done. Eleanor felt the tiniest shift in her posture as she stood up. Straighter, firmer. They stepped out onto the street, sunlight hitting them like a clean slate. Lunch on me, Jeanette said. Next time, Eleanor replied. I want to cook something, on purpose. When Eleanor got home, the front door was wide open. Carrie's laughter echoed from the living room. Eleanor stepped inside and saw her daughter-in-law perched on the couch, phone in hand. Mark, Carrie called out. Our reel hit 22,000 views. Eleanor froze. Carrie's phone screen showed a paused video. Eleanor at the dinner table, holding a fork mid-bite. A subtitle read, Grandma Gets Surprise Protein Upgrade, Ulf # Family Fun. The thumbnail image, Eleanor's face twisted just before she stood and walked away. Mark appeared behind the couch, phone in hand. It's blowing up, he said. Might even help boost her boutique. Eleanor turned without a word and walked upstairs. She sat at her desk, checked her phone. One new text from an unknown number. Was that you in the video? Deborah from the church board, her hands stilled. The quiet that followed wasn't peace, it was ignition. The branch was closed, but the lights were still on, soft golden beams spilling across the polished tile floor. Eleanor stepped through the side entrance, just as the automatic locks clicked behind her, the sound final, like a vault ceiling. Maya Price stood waiting near her office, blazer draped over the back of her chair, sleeves rolled above her elbows. You're right on time, she said, a warm but focused smile crossing her face. Just us, no interruptions. Eleanor offered a nod. She carried only her leather binder and a quiet resolve. They sat across from each other beneath a framed photo of the Blue Ridge Parkway. A faint citrus cleaner scent lingered in the air. Eleanor placed the binder on the desk, flipping it open to a tab marked Asset Overview. Tell me everything, Maya said, already opening her secure terminal. The joint account with my son was for estate simplification, Eleanor began. That's how he sold it to me, but I've been watching withdrawals tied to boutique expenses. Luxury decor, business transit, things I never approved. I want the funds protected, fully and permanently. Maya clicked through a series of tabs, eyes narrowing as she read. You're still listed as primary account holder, but joint control lets either party act independently. She looked up. There are loopholes, big ones. Close them. Maya leaned back slightly, studying Eleanor. This isn't just a fix, it's a restructuring. Eleanor didn't blink. Exactly. For a moment Maya said nothing. Then you remember when you taught that Saturday financial literacy class at the library? My mom had just died. I didn't even know how to close her accounts. Eleanor nodded softly. You stayed late, helped me navigate 6 different forms, and talked me down from a panic spiral. That's what money does, Eleanor said. It either cages you or frees you. I'd rather free someone. Maya gave a slight smile and swiveled her monitor toward Eleanor. We're going to establish a living revocable trust. You'll be the sole trustee. No one touches it but you. We'll transfer the assets from the joint account, close it entirely, and set up a secondary trust for your grandson. Timed release, education restricted. Eleanor's fingers tightened slightly on the binder. And Mark and Carrie? Maya's tone cooled, professional again. Excluded. You retain the right to amend, but their names will not appear anywhere. She walked Eleanor through each step, pausing only to confirm initials and verification codes. Paperwork slid across the desk. Pen strokes followed. Initial here, signature there, print and re-verify. By the time they reached the final form, the air had changed, still calm, but charged, like the hush before a verdict. Maya glanced at the totals. You've done more homework than most lawyers. I was underestimated, Eleanor said, capping her pen. That's the last time. The final click echoed as Maya finalized the transfers. Funds now secured in a trust under Eleanor's sole authority. A firewall between her and the hands that once reached without asking. Maya stood. I'll issue a formal closure on the joint account tonight. They won't know it until the cards declined. Eleanor rose too, binder clasped shut. Let the silence deliver the message. Outside, the sun had dipped below the line of the mountains. The street was quiet, save for the rustle of early August leaves and the distant bass line of a passing car stereo. Back inside the boutique, Carrie held up a set of Art Deco shelving units to the cashier. Business cards on file, she chirped. It's under read. The swipe was smooth. The pause, longer. The cashier frowned. I'm sorry. It's been declined. Carrie blinked. Run it again. She did. Declined. Carrie's smile twitched. What the set? Her phone vibrated with a banking notification. Alert, joint account access has been removed. The first scream came from the laundry room. Carrie's voice cracked with disbelief. Mark. A thud followed. The sound of her phone being tossed onto the dryer lid. Footsteps pounded toward the hallway, fast and erratic. Eleanor stood in the kitchen, the kettle just beginning to sing. She reached over and turned off the burner, steam whispering into the air like a secret released. Mark appeared in the doorway a moment later, still wearing his Bluetooth headset from a client call. What's going on? She cut the damn account off, Carrie yelled, storming in behind him. I couldn't buy the shelving unit. The card declined. Twice. Mark's eyes locked onto Eleanor. Mum? Eleanor poured hot water into her mug and stirred a bag of Earl Grey. You're going to want to sit down. Carrie flailed a hand. She froze it or closed it. I don't know. They said I'm not authorized. Mark's face darkened. Is that true? Eleanor didn't raise her voice. I didn't freeze it. I transferred it into a protected trust. One with a single name on it. He took a step forward. You cut us off? She sipped her tea. You'll manage. You always said you could. Mark stared at her, as if waiting for the punchline. You didn't even talk to us first. You didn't talk to me before charging patio heaters, velvet mannequins, and whatever ambient scent diffusers are. Mark's jaw tensed. Those were business investments for Carrie's store. It's family income now. No, Eleanor said coolly, reaching for a folder on the counter. It was my income. From my condo, my pensions, my lifetime of careful planning. She slid the folder across the counter. Take a look. Mark hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a notarized copy of the trust, page after page of allocations, protections, asset lists, all bearing Eleanor's signature. At the top, Trustee Eleanor L. Reed, sole authority. He flipped through it as if the paper might suddenly vanish. You made this permanent as law allows. Carrie's voice rose. This is theft. Eleanor tilted her head. From whom? The person you filmed without consent. The one you served pet food and called it comedy. Mark's lips parted, but no defense came. From the staircase, a voice cut through the room. Good. They all turned. Wesley stood halfway down, one hand on the railing, the other holding a half-eaten apple. That money's hers anyway, he said. She earned it. You just spent it. Carrie's face turned red. Excuse me. You heard me, he said, descending slowly. And don't yell at me in front of Grandma. Mark looked at his son, something unreadable passing through his eyes. Not quite shame, not quite surprise, maybe both. Before anyone could speak, a knock came at the door. 3 short raps. Eleanor didn't flinch. That'll be Jeanette. Mark blinked. Jeanette Morse. Why would? But Eleanor was already moving, her steps steady. She opened the front door. Jeanette stood in a smart navy blazer, a leather briefcase in one hand and 2 witnesses behind her. One was Della from the church board, the other a woman Eleanor recognized from her book club. Afternoon, Jeanette said with a polite smile. I brought the final restructuring package, and our legal observers. Carrie's mouth dropped. Observers for what? Jeanette didn't even look at her. Estate transfer. Full documentation. Eleanor's not just protecting her present anymore, she's securing her future. Legally. Eleanor stepped aside to let them in. Mark stared at the papers in Jeanette's hand, realization settling like a stone in his chest. Mom, he said. Voice quieter now. This feels like war. Eleanor met his gaze. No, Mark. This is peace. You just didn't expect to be on the other side of it. The skillet hissed as butter met cast iron. The scent of thyme, garlic, and browning chicken filled the air, warm and grounded, like a memory cooked fresh. Eleanor stood at the stove with her sleeves rolled up and her apron tied at the back, the kitchen blissfully quiet. No cameras, no reels, no voices bouncing jokes off her dignity. Just the ticking of the wall clock and the gentle rhythm of her own breath. She moved slowly but with precision. A saucepan simmered nearby, mashed sweet potatoes with a touch of nutmeg. Broccoli florets roasted behind her, crackling softly as they crisped at the edges. This dinner wasn't just a meal, it was restoration, and it was only for 2. Wesley peeked around the corner, still in his hoodie and jeans. Smells insane in here. Eleanor smiled. Set the table. We're keeping it old-fashioned tonight. No phones. He gave a mock salute. Yes, ma'am. She placed the chicken breasts on a serving dish, added a sprig of rosemary, and carried them over just as Wesley lit the tall, mismatched candle in the middle of the table. It had been months, maybe years, since she'd lit that candle. They sat across from each other. No third plate. No Carrie performing her curated version of domesticity. No Mark rushing to another client call. Just Eleanor and her grandson. 2 people with more in common than anyone had noticed. You cook better than half the food trucks downtown, Wesley said, mouth half full, a trace of awe in his voice. Eleanor chuckled. Don't let the salt and pepper hair fool you. I used to cater weddings. Seriously, back when your father was still in high school, I didn't have much choice. Numbers by day, hors d'oeuvres by night. Wesley nodded, chewing slower now. Then he looked up. I want to be someone people don't laugh at, he said quietly. The fork paused in Eleanor's hand. He continued. Mom always says I'm too sensitive, that I don't get the humor. But I don't think humiliating people is funny. Eleanor set her fork down completely. Neither do I. Silence swelled between them, but it didn't ache. Sometimes, she said, people use cruelty to feel important. They wrap it in charm and pass it off as tradition or playfulness. But when you're on the other side of it, it feels like rust in your bones. Wesley swallowed. Yeah. Eleanor reached across the table, gently touched his hand. Never confuse cruelty for connection, she said. And never let anyone tell you your empathy is a flaw. It's armor. Sharpen it. His eyes glistened, but he nodded, blinking hard. After dinner they cleared the plates together. He washed, she dried. Carrie passed the kitchen once, eyes puffy, but said nothing. Mark hadn't come down all day. The silence was thick with consequence now. Eleanor retreated to her room later, laptop on her lap, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She opened her recipe blog, one she hadn't touched in a year. The banner still read, "Feeding the Numbers, Cooking from the Mind and Heart." She created a new post and titled it "Kibble and Clarity." She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The post began, "They fed me a joke. I fed myself truth." She shared the recipe for the exact dinner she'd made, a meal born not of fancy ingredients, but of boundaries, dignity, and quiet rebellion. She laced the post with wisdom, not bitterness. Her voice clear but edged. She published it at 9:43 p.m., closed the laptop, and turned off the light. At 11:02 p.m., her phone buzzed once, then again. Then it didn't stop. By midnight, her blog analytics showed an unprecedented spike in traffic, over 2,000 shares. Hundreds of comments, many from elder caregivers, others from adult children, still more from strangers who simply understood. A message from a forum moderator popped up. "Would you be willing to share your story more broadly? You've struck a nerve, in a good way." Eleanor blinked at the screen. Her hands, once ignored in their silence, were being listened to now, loud and clear. By morning the comment count had tripled. By noon it had detonated. Eleanor sat at her desk, in a cotton robe, the soft sunlight streaking in through the sheer curtains and pooling on the floor like honey. Her tea had gone cold hours ago. Untouched, the blinking notification on her blog dashboard seemed to breathe on its own. Views 87,309. Shares 41,727. Messages waiting 123. But it wasn't the numbers that struck her. It was the names, from Judith in Minnesota. "My son yells when I ask for my own debit card back. You gave me the courage to ask again." From Teresa in Delaware. "They say it's just helping when they move into your house and drive your car. Thank you for showing us it's not selfish to draw a line." Dozens more followed. People with silent wounds, finding something sharp and dignified in Eleanor's voice. She clicked open a message from someone named Janice in Denver. The subject line read, "Want to write for us? We're a nonprofit focused on elder advocacy and financial autonomy. We read your blog post and were floored. Would you consider contributing a monthly piece? We'll pay, of course. But more importantly, your voice matters." Eleanor reread the message twice. Then she picked up her pen and scribbled a phrase into her notebook. "Senior sovereignty, how to outplan your abusers." Just below that she wrote, "Installments, real voices, no shame." A ping. It was Maya. Maya Price, saw the blog. "It's powerful. Proud of you.
You were they.
Would you like an intro to a nonprofit I partner with? They focus on financial education for seniors. They'd love you." Eleanor typed back without hesitation. "Yes. Let's talk." Across the hall the mood was different. Carrie paced the living room with her phone in one hand, her face twisted in panic and rage. "She's writing about us. She didn't even change the timeline. That whole organic protein joke is right there in the text." Mark sat slouched on the armrest of the couch, scrolling the blog on his own phone. His face sagged in disbelief. "It's going viral," he muttered. "Forums. TikTok compilations. There's a guy doing a dramatic reading of the post." Carrie wheeled around. "This is character assassination." Mark didn't reply. "She's making us look like villains." Carrie snapped. "We look abusive. At that, Eleanor appeared in the doorway, one hand steady on the frame. You filmed it, she said simply. Carrie's eyes narrowed. So this is about payback? No, Eleanor replied. It's about pattern recognition. Mark stood, voice flat. We thought we were helping. We added you to our lives. Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. No, you added me to your bills. The words settled in the room like dust after demolition. Nothing moved, but everything shifted. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but whatever he had planned crumbled under the weight of her clarity. Eleanor walked slowly toward the kitchen, each step deliberate. She opened the fridge, pulled out a container of leftover sweet potatoes, and spooned some into a bowl like she hadn't just dropped a rhetorical anvil. Behind her, silence reigned. Carrie's shoulders trembled, not from sadness but fury. She stomped out of the room, muttering under her breath about lawyers and reputation management. Mark lingered a moment longer. You're really not going to fix this? He asked. Eleanor placed the bowl in the microwave and turned to him. I am fixing it, she said. You just don't like the version where I'm in charge. The beep of the microwave cut through his stunned quiet. He left without another word. Eleanor sat at the table, opened her laptop again, and began drafting the next blog post. The swipe didn't go through. Carrie's manicured thumb jabbed the card terminal again, lips pressed tight. Another beep. Another red declined. The boutique clerk, a college-aged woman in a chunky knit vest, looked up apologetically. It's still not accepting it. Carrie forced a laugh. Her voice clipped. That's impossible. It's a business account. Just try one more time. The girl obliged, her fingers tapping keys on the iPad like a slow death march. Swipe. Decline. Again. Carrie's face flushed as the couple behind her whispered and shifted their gaze to the rug displays. She yanked her phone from her bag and opened her banking app. It spun for a moment, then landed on a balance that blinked like a silent dare. Account access revoked, linked card status. Inactive. No, 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 she muttered. Her phone buzzed, an alert from Eleanor's old account. Update, all secondary users removed. Card access permanently closed. She stood frozen, breath caught in her throat, the pieces clicking into place like glass shattering in reverse. Then, with the fury of someone just locked out of their own fantasy, she dialed. Back in the house, Eleanor sat at the dining room table, sorting her paperwork into two neat stacks. One for her records, one for Jeanette. Her cup of mint tea had gone cold again, but she liked the scent, sharp and honest. Mark had gone quiet that week. The kind of quiet that was all corners and no edges, sulking but not apologizing. He stayed in his home office mostly, the door always halfway closed, phone calls always muffled. Carrie's call came in mid-sort. Eleanor didn't answer. A minute later, a text arrived instead. You're cutting off my business income. This is financial abuse. Eleanor stared at the screen. Then she picked it up and walked to the study, where Jeanette sat finishing up the estate documentation with a portable scanner. Look, Eleanor said, holding out her phone. She's gone to the abuse phase. Jeanette didn't miss a beat. You want me to draft a cease and desist? Yes, please. And put in the clause about defamation by implication. Jeanette smirked and clicked open her laptop. On it, Carrie had used the word abuse like it was armor, loud, brittle, performative. Eleanor knew better. The real abuse wasn't what you said. It was what you spent without asking. Eleanor walked back into the kitchen and opened the bottom drawer where she kept the less than glamorous essentials: batteries, checkbooks, and her direct deposit forms. She removed a new sheet from the credit union welcome packet, grabbed a pen, and filled out the routing and account info. The pen scratched calmly against the paper. Her monthly pension, what remained of decades of labor, sacrifice, and fiscal restraint, would no longer pass through hands that mistook her trust for permission. From the hallway, a soft voice. Grandma? Wesley leaned in, earbuds dangling from his collar. You just locked Mom out of everything, didn't you? Eleanor raised an eyebrow. Technically, I locked myself in. He let out a low whistle. You're low-key terrifying. She smiled. Terrifying gets things done. He walked over and glanced at the paperwork. This is all smart, you know. I've been reading about predatory family control stuff online, like how people manipulate older folks to get access to their stuff. He paused. You should write about this more. Eleanor smiled. Maybe I will. That night the house sat heavier than usual. Mark didn't come down for dinner. Carrie slammed 2 doors before retreating to her boutique inventory room, now stripped of its funds, but still bursting with egos and empty packaging. Eleanor brushed her hair in front of the mirror, the strands thinner than they'd been, but still silver and sharp under the bathroom light. She returned to her laptop and refreshed her blog inbox. At the top, a new subject line glowed. Hi Eleanor, journalist with Modern Elder magazine here. Can we interview you for our series on financial boundaries? She leaned back in her chair, the corners of her mouth lifting ever so slightly. Eleanor dipped the pen into her favorite black ink, the kind she only used for things that mattered. She had used that pen to sign Wesley's birth card, to endorse the check when she sold her condo, and once to write a letter to herself she never mailed. Today the same pen would sever what should have never been bound. Across the dining table, Jeanette slid the new will toward her with clinical precision. The overhead light hummed quietly above them, and outside, the garden swayed gently in the August breeze. There, Jeanette said, tapping the section header. Beneficiaries. Ready? Eleanor didn't speak. She only nodded. Line by line, she read it over. Mark Reed, now relegated to a conditional trust. Disbursements contingent upon regular wellness check-ins and financial accountability reviews. No lump sums, no discretionary power. Carrie Reed, gone, entirely removed. No inheritance, no legal standing, no name on the deed, trust, or emergency directives. Instead, in careful block letters, the name that stood alone at the top of the primary beneficiary list, Wesley A. Reed, for educational and personal development purposes only. Eleanor signed. Jeanette turned the page. 2 witnesses waited in the living room, sipping lemonade. Della and a neighbor who ran the local notary kiosk. Della was first to step in, placing her hand gently on Eleanor's shoulder before picking up the pen. I've waited years, she said softly, to see you take your power back. Eleanor smiled, but said nothing. Some victories deserved their own silence. Once the signatures were complete, Jeanette folded the documents with practiced care and handed Eleanor 2 stamped envelopes. One goes to your attorney, the other, the county archive. You've got a full legal firewall now. They can't contest what they were never entitled to. Eleanor walked both envelopes to the mailbox herself. Her shoes crunched on the gravel as she crossed the driveway, a whisper of wind carrying the faint scent of sage from the garden. She placed each envelope into the steel box, then pulled the red flag upright with a slow, final motion. Inside, she poured herself a cup of hibiscus tea, and waited. 3 days later, a courier knocked. The envelope Carrie received was cream-colored, thick and embossed with the county seal. It arrived while she was repotting succulents in the boutique's sunroom, and she tore it open without even reading the return address. Her scream echoed into the hallway. Mark found her sitting on the floor, letter in hand, her face drained of color. She removed me, Carrie said hoarsely. She actually removed me. Mark took the letter and read it silently. A certified notification, legally binding, confirming that Carrie had been formally and permanently disinherited. The decision was already filed, already final. This is insane, she snapped. I built this house with her. She's cutting me out of a future I helped design. No, Mark said. You designed it around her money, not with her. She whipped around to face him. So you're just okay with this? With her rewriting history like we were never here? He didn't answer. He simply stood and walked away. That night, Wesley found the note. It was tucked into his sketchbook, the one he always left near the windowsill. The handwriting was unmistakably Carrie's, loopy, rushed, marked with emotional fingerprints. She's turning you against us. Just remember who raised you when she wasn't here. Wesley stared at the words for a long time. Then, without ceremony, he folded the paper once and slid it into the trash beside his desk. He didn't need anyone to tell him where loyalty lived now.
But
He'd seen it. Not in grand gestures, but in bound trust documents, late-night grilled cheese sandwiches, and the sound of his name being spoken with real belief. The envelope was thin, official and impossible to misread. Eleanor sealed it with deliberate care, pressing the adhesive shut with the flat of her palm. Her return address was written in clear block letters, the kind no one could claim was illegible or accidental. She placed the envelope gently into the outgoing mail tray beside Jeanette's briefcase. "Office of Aging gets this one," Eleanor said. "The civil grievance goes digitally." Jeanette nodded without looking up, already on her laptop, scanning the forms into her encrypted folder. "You're triggering 2 investigations, one for elder mistreatment, one for misuse of financial trust. They won't see it coming." "They never saw me," Eleanor replied. "That was their mistake." Outside, wind rattled the wind chimes on the porch. Inside, it was still, thick with the kind of quiet that comes before thunder. The first call didn't come to Eleanor. It went to Mark. She overheard it through the thin wall separating her room from his makeshift office. "No, I wasn't aware of a complaint," he said, voice tight. "Yes, I understand. But surely there's been some mistake. My mother lives with us. There's no mistreatment." A pause. A longer pause. "I understand. We'll cooperate fully." He hung up, then stormed out. Eleanor was waiting for him at the foot of the stairs, a linen folder tucked under her arm. "You filed a complaint?" he asked, voice low but heated. She didn't answer. She simply handed him the folder. Inside were copies of everything: the complaint to the Office of Aging, the civil grievance submitted through the Consumer Protection Agency, annotated screenshots of financial transactions, and stills from the viral dinner prank video. Mark's face paled as he flipped through the pages. "This is serious." "So was the Mia you laughed at," Eleanor said. "Look, Mom, I get that you're upset, but this is going to destroy Carrie's business." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "You're worried about her boutique? Not the $10,000 siphoned off my life savings under the guise of family help?" Mark exhaled, the air sharp between his teeth. "Can't we talk about this without dragging state agencies into it?" "You had your chance to talk," Eleanor replied, voice level. "You chose silence. Every time she crossed a line. Every time she mocked me. Every time she used me." Mark's hands clenched around the folder. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Wesley appeared at the top of the stairs, his arms folded, watching. "You chose a side every time you said nothing," Eleanor added. Mark looked up at his son. "Wes, come on. Tell her she's being unreasonable." Wesley didn't move. "She's not being unreasonable," he said. "She's being braver than all of us." That landed harder than anything Eleanor could have said. Mark's mouth opened then closed. He turned and walked out of the room. Carrie got her notice the next day. The letter arrived while she was reorganizing the boutique's front counter, trying to regain the gloss of professionalism after weeks of online blowback. She opened the envelope at the register. Subject: Official Notice of Investigation. Potential elder financial abuse from Office of Consumer Affairs and Protection, Asheville Regional. The words danced on the page as her hands shook. She barely noticed her assistant hovering nearby, watching the color drain from her face. "Carrie," the girl asked, "is everything okay?" Carrie didn't answer. She stormed into the back office, ripped open her laptop and logged into her business banking dashboard. The login hung for a beat too long. Then a red banner appeared: "Account under review. Temporarily Rosen pending compliance inquiry under case hash of 50,321. Her breath hitched. Her fingers froze above the keys. Outside the glass door of her boutique, a customer peered in, curious, expectant. Carrie stood paralyzed behind the counter, locked in by the very silence she once laughed over. The projector warmed with a soft hum, casting a pale glow on the blank wall. Rows of folding chairs filled the local library's community room, the air buzzing with low murmurs and the scent of coffee from the refreshment table. At the front of the room stood Eleanor Reed, pressed slacks, calm posture, and a folder that weighed more than paper ever should. Beside her, Jeanette Morse checked the mic levels and nodded. You ready? Eleanor looked at her oldest friend and financial co-executor, the woman who'd helped her redraw the map of her life. I've never been readier. It had started as an idea over tea. A single blog post that sparked a wildfire. Then came the messages, the interviews, the non-profit outreach. And now, this an elder financial empowerment seminar, co-hosted by the bank that once viewed her as a soft-voiced co-signer. Maya stood near the back, smiling with arms folded. We need more voices like hers, she told a local reporter. People assume elder abuse is always physical, but it's often quieter. Paper cuts to the soul. As the chairs filled with caregivers, seniors, students, and professionals, Jeanette adjusted the laptop feed and whispered, let's show them what two widows and a spreadsheet can do. The lights dimmed. Wesley stepped onto the stage, taller somehow, confidence tucked into his posture like an inheritance finally understood. My name's Wesley Reed, he said into the mic, his voice steady. And this is my grandma, the one who taught me to draw the line. Applause rose, gentle but affirming. Eleanor stepped forward. The screen behind her illuminated with the title Senior Sovereignty, the Power of Saying No. She didn't start with bullet points or legal jargon. She started with a bowl of meatloaf. In my house, she began. They served me a joke. I chose to serve them boundaries. A few heads turned. A few phones discreetly began recording. I'm not here to shame anyone, she continued. I'm here to name something that lives in too many households. The slow erosion of dignity disguised as help, or worse, humor. She walked the audience through small red flags, legal tools, and protective language buried in banking contracts. Jeanette interjected at key points with financial clarification. Maya stood near the rear entrance, fielding questions and handing out pamphlets. By the time Eleanor closed her talk, several attendees were wiping their eyes. Never apologize for outgrowing disrespect, she said, voice unwavering. Not in marriage, not in friendship, not in family. As she stepped down from the podium, people stood, some clapped slowly. Others approached her directly, with gratitude, with questions, with stories of their own. But across town, the applause wasn't echoing. Carrie sat behind her boutique counter, staring at the screen of her tablet as it buzzed with a notification. She'd spent the morning trying to claw back vendor accounts, explain the investigation to suspicious customers, and walk around the elephant-sized silence that now defined her marriage. The notification was brief, clinical. Subject: commercial lease termination notice from Worthington Property Group, effective 30 days from receipt. Reason: business activity under investigation, reputational risk to Plaza. Her hand shook as she clicked through the document. She hadn't even seen it coming. Later that evening, she stepped outside the shop just as two local business owners passed by. One, from the candle shop next door, didn't even make eye contact. The other, the woman who ran the bakery across the plaza, gave her a glance that said everything and nothing all at once. We saw the video, she said under her breath. We saw the fallout. Carrie stood still, lips parted, unable to conjure the defense she once wore so easily. The microphone hissed softly as Eleanor adjusted it, the podium cool beneath her fingertips. The hotel conference room was packed. Row after row of professionals, caregivers, advocates, and elders with sharp eyes and lived in silence. The air buzzed with coffee, badge lanyards, and a quiet readiness. She stood beneath a banner that read Carolina Conference on Elder Financial Rights. A voice from the wings echoed through the speakers. Next up, a woman whose story started with a dinner and ended with a movement. Wesley sat in the front row, phone steady in both hands as he recorded. Jeanette sat beside him, back straight, glasses glinting. Maya stood to the side, clipboard in hand, moderating the session. Eleanor leaned forward, adjusted the mic, and smiled. It wasn't wide, it wasn't showy, but it was hers. My name is Eleanor Reed, she began, voice smooth and firm. I'm a retired accountant, a grandmother, and until recently, I was the punchline of my own dinner table. A ripple of murmurs. She held their eyes. Today I want to talk about power, permission, And the price of humiliation. She clicked the remote. Behind her a single image appeared. A plate of meatloaf. Nothing fancy, grainy, uncomfortable. I'm not here to list statutes or legal terms, though I know them well. I'm here to tell you what happens when silence costs more than money. She told one story. Just one. A welcome dinner, a special plate, a hidden joke, the laughter of people who once called her family, the click of a locked bathroom door, the quiet calculation of betrayal, and then the binders, the transfers, the trust, the redirection of control. I didn't shout, she said. I didn't argue. I didn't post rebuttals. I documented. I shifted. I rewrote the ending. The room was still. Not a single phone buzzed. Not a coffee stirred. Even the hotel staff had paused near the service door. Wesley zoomed in with his camera, his jaw tense but proud. Eleanor gestured softly to Jeanette, seated stage right. I didn't do it alone. I had someone who saw me as more than someone being helped. I had a friend who reminded me what consent and clarity really look like. Jeanette nodded once. Eyes glossy. Eleanor turned back to the crowd. We often talk about elder abuse like it's dramatic, obvious, physical, but most of it, it's subtle, polite, branded as care. She paused. I wasn't protected because I was too trusting. I was protected because I finally stopped pretending trust and proximity are the same thing. Silence again. Even the note-takers had frozen. And now, she added, I want to teach others how to recognize the difference before the joke comes with a receipt. The last slide faded in senior sovereignty. Learn, lock, lead. A breath, then another, then applause. Soft at first, like wind through dry leaves, but it rose. Swelled. Chairs scraped back. People stood. The ovation rolled through the ballroom like thunder. Maya was the first to hug her as she stepped down. You just burned down a room full of lawyers with a meatloaf story. Jeanette reached for her hand, and you did it in a tone that made them lean in, not away. A line formed almost immediately. Non-profit directors. Retired judges. Middle-aged daughters wiping their cheeks. Can we publish that talk? Asked a woman from an elder law foundation. Would you join our podcast? Asked another. Eleanor glanced at Wesley, who was still holding the camera. Send me the footage, she said. I want to archive this one properly. They laughed. But miles away in a boutique with thinning inventory and a shuttered bank account, Carrie Reed sat behind her counter scrolling TikTok. A video auto-played. The screen lit up with Eleanor's face at the podium. The caption read, Grandma shuts down elder abuse, one account at a time. The views were climbing. So were the comments. Carrie watched as Eleanor delivered the line, never apologize for outgrowing disrespect. The sound cut out as Carrie's phone hit the wall. It cracked, but the video kept playing, even in silence. The final document wasn't bound in a glossy cover. No color graphs, no pageantry, just weight. Legal weight. Truth, printed and initialed and notarized. Eleanor sealed the manila envelope slowly, smoothing the flap with the flat of her palm like she was closing a wound. Inside, a forensic-level report of every transaction, every removed co-owner, every closed liability, dates, amounts, descriptions, login trails, receipts too, itemized and annotated. Jeanette stood by the front window, sipping tea and reviewing the digital version on her tablet. You sure you want to file it with restitution included? Yes, Eleanor said, her voice calm and level. If she wanted to be part of my finances, then she can answer for how she used them. A moment of silence passed, broken only by the creak of the old mailbox, as Eleanor slipped the envelope inside. A legal courier would collect it with it. Jeanette clicked her tablet. Estate team has it. Confirmed. Civil claim included. Carrie's name is officially flagged as an exploitative party. Not a criminal charge. Not a lawsuit. Not yet. But a legal stain that would follow Carrie through every future application for financial co-ownership or family trust. Across the house, Wesley sat in his room with a small gift box in his lap. The leather wristband inside had his initials etched into it, a birthday present from Carrie months ago. He walked downstairs and found Eleanor in the study. Without a word, he placed the box on her desk. "I'm giving it back," he said. "I found the receipt. She used your card." Eleanor nodded, slow and steady. "She bought it with someone else's dignity," he said. "I know," she replied. "You don't have to wear anything tied to a cost like that." He didn't. That evening Eleanor amended her living will. She sat at her writing desk, the soft click of the lamp casting a golden ring on the page. She scratched out Mark's name in black ink, replacing it with Jeanette's und. Under secondary, she wrote, "Wesley A.A. Reed. Effective at age 18, contingent on financial literacy certification." She added clauses for medical autonomy. No override by family. No emergency decision-making by estranged beneficiaries. She'd spent a life earning peace. This document guaranteed it would remain hers. The following morning, a black SUV screeched to a stop in front of Asheville First National Bank. Carrie stormed in, hair wild, blazer askew, eyes frantic. She marched straight to Maya's office. Maya looked up without surprise. "Good morning, Carrie." "You cut me out of everything," Carrie snapped. "I demand access. This is financial sabotage. You're not authorized." Maya said calmly, "I was on the account for over a year. You were an authorized secondary. You were removed, in accordance with state and federal regulation, over a month ago." Carrie slammed her palm on the desk. "Then I want a reinstatement. Call Eleanor. She's being manipulated." Maya didn't blink. "We've reviewed the trust, the estate restructuring, the power of attorney and the living will. Every decision was made independently, voluntarily, and with third-party oversight. This is abuse," Carrie hissed. "She's targeting me." Maya leaned back, retrieved a white envelope from her file drawer, and placed it between them. "I was instructed to give you this personally," she said. Carrie tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside, "To Carrie Ann Reed. This letter serves as final notice that you no longer have any legal, financial, or custodial access to the accounts, trusts, or estate holdings of Eleanor L. Reed. Your previous access was revoked in full on date, filed and recorded with our institution, the County Probate Office, and the Office of Aging Oversight. Furthermore, your name has been formally flagged in our system under internal watch protocols for potential elder financial exploitation. Any attempt to gain unauthorized access going forward will be documented and forwarded to the appropriate legal authorities." Maya Price, branch manager. Carrie's lips parted, but no words followed. The letter didn't scream. It didn't accuse. It simply closed every door. Permanently. Maya added quietly, "There's no appeal process." The keypad chirped softly beneath Eleanor's fingertips. 4 digits. Her old pension ID. A sound like a vault sealed the door behind her with a satisfying click. The upstairs guest room had been stripped to its bones and reborn. No more beige walls, no leftover floral bedding, no chipped dresser collecting dust. In its place, walnut bookshelves, a deep blue accent wall, and a reclaimed oak desk positioned perfectly beneath the east-facing window. On the door, a custom brass plaque gleamed, "Reed LAD Room." It wasn't grandiose. It was exact, accounted for. On the far wall, framed in matte black, hung a sketch Wesley had drawn weeks earlier. A lion standing tall in front of a calculator, its mane curling like currency symbols. The caption in block letters read, "Do not mistake softness for surrender." Eleanor had wept when he gave it to her, though she'd done it privately. Now the lion watched over the room like a silent co-author. She powered on her laptop and opened a blank document. The cursor blinked. Title, "Respect is Earned, but also Budgeted." Her fingers hovered, then danced across the keyboard. People say boundaries are rude, but being devoured politely is still being devoured. The guidebook wasn't for publishing yet, not even for posting. It was for the woman who'd once believed self-sacrifice made her worthy. The one who'd let herself be laughed at in the name of family. Not anymore. A soft chime interrupted her typing. A small bell Eleanor had placed near the door in lieu of a knock. Wesley stood there, his hand still on the bell cord, something glinting in his palm. A key? She asked. He stepped forward and placed it in her hand. Polished brass, small but solid. It's the spare to the safe, he said. Jeanette gave it to me, said it was symbolic authority. Eleanor held it between her fingers, watching the way it caught the light. Then she turned to him. That opens the safe, she said. But you already earned what's inside. He looked at her for a moment, then moved without hesitation, wrapping his arms around her in a hug so fierce, so pure, it shook something loose inside her. You saved us both, he whispered. She held him tighter. Outside the house was still, not just in sound, but in weight. Since the notice, Carrie had stopped speaking entirely, moving through the halls like a flickering signal trying to reconnect. Mark had begun coming home later and later, dinner untouched, earbuds in. But inside the Reed Ledger room, the silence meant something else. Peace. Wesley pulled back. Can I help you format the e-book when it's ready? You just did, she smiled. Page 1. He left with a grin, the door clicking shut behind him. Eleanor tapped the keypad and watched the red light blink back into armed mode. One room. Entirely hers. Not rented. Not borrowed. Not invaded. Her laptop pinged again. A new email. She opened it. From Harper and Lyman Publishing. Subject, Opportunity. Let's talk royalties. Dear Miss we read your post Kibble and Clarity, and recently watched your segment from the Carolina Elder Rights Conference. We believe your voice fills a gap in the market. Authentic, sharp, and urgently needed. Would you be open to discussing a potential manuscript deal and digital rights agreement? Let's talk royalties. Eleanor stared at the screen, her fingers motionless. The cursor blinked again. Waiting, not rushing. She closed the laptop. She didn't need to answer tonight. Some things deserved a pause, a breath, a deep, proud inhale, in a room built not just for comfort, but for consequence. The morning was crisp, still carrying the edge of late summer, the kind that wrapped around you like a light shawl instead of a blanket. Eleanor stepped slowly down the garden path, cane tucked under one arm, her other hand cradling the leather-bound ledger, the same one she'd carried into the bank, into courtrooms of paperwork, into silence. Now it was simply coming with her to a bench. The old oak stretched above her, golden light filtering through the leaves in soft patches. Her favorite bench sat beneath it, flanked by two potted lavender bushes that brushed against her calves as she sat. A minute passed, maybe 3. Then footsteps. Wesley approached with 2 mugs in hand, ceramic, mismatched, steaming. Hot cocoa, he said. No jokes, promise. She smiled as he handed her the one with the chipped handle. That's the good mug, she said. Exactly why I gave it to you. They sat quietly for a moment, the steam curling between them like punctuation marks. Eleanor rested the ledger on her lap and opened it to the final tab. A login page for her new account. 2-step authentication. Biometric lock. Private trust status. No co-owners. She tapped through it slowly, her knuckles worn but firm. The balance appeared $846,213.09, steady, untouched, secured. She closed it gently, as if even the screen needed rest. Wesley shifted beside her. They're gone, by the way. Eleanor raised a brow. Packed up last night. Mom didn't say anything. Dad just left his key on the hook by the door. No note, no knock, just gone. She nodded. That's how people leave when they were never fully present. He didn't ask if she was hurt. He didn't need to. He'd seen her rebuild every line of her life with focus, not bitterness. Still, he added, I'm sorry they didn't say goodbye. I'm not, she said. A goodbye implies they think it was something worth ending. This was survival. For me. For you. Wesley glanced at the garden beds, now fully hers, blooming in neat rows like ledgers balanced with color. I overheard Dad on the phone a few weeks ago. He said he felt like you hijacked the future. Eleanor sipped her cocoa. No, I rerouted it, from neglect to intention. The house, now silent, loomed behind them. But it wasn't heavy anymore. There was no resentment in its bricks, just consequence. The deed had officially been transferred into the trust. The new title named only one future owner, Wesley Allen Reed, with full rights activated upon his college graduation. He knew. She'd told him with the same tone she used to read bedtime stories, firm, soft, and never uncertain. "Do you miss any of it?" he asked. She considered that. "I miss who I pretended they could be," she said. "But I don't miss what I had to shrink to make them comfortable." A bird fluttered down onto the bench rail, bright-chested, twitchy. Wesley watched it while Eleanor removed her hearing aids and set them in her pocket. She closed her eyes. The world softened into wind through leaves, the rustle of lavender, the slight chime of ceramic mugs when they brushed. No ringing, no screens, no laughter at her expense. Just this. "I think your stories helped more people than you know," Wesley said. She didn't open her eyes. "I didn't write it for the world," she said. "I wrote it to remind myself I still had a voice." Another pause. Then Eleanor opened her eyes and turned to him, smile quiet but full. "You have your key to the trust?" He nodded. "You have your name on the deed?" He nodded again. She reached into the ledger and pulled out a small envelope, sealed in wax. "This isn't about money. It's about what you don't let people take from you, even if they live under your roof." Wesley took the envelope gently. "What's in it?" "Legacy," she said. "Not inheritance. There's a difference." They sat like that for a while longer, cocoa cooling, peace settling, and then Eleanor said, softly, not to him but to the breeze, "They served me dog food once." She looked down at the sealed ledger in her lap. The oak tree creaked slightly above. "I served them closure, without a word."